Hi class, welcome to this video which will serve as an answer key for the handout you can see on the screen there, 6.4 parallel and perpendicular lines extra practice. I will be going over how to complete questions 2 to 12. There's no need to watch the whole video if you feel like you understand how to do some of the questions. There will be timestamps listed in the description below, so you can just click ahead to the question you need answered. Good luck. So when I answer these kinds of questions like we have in this worksheet here, I follow the 4 steps that you can see on the right hand side of your screen. And this is very similar to the video that I sent you. So I'll be doing that as I go through each of these questions. The first step actually before any of these 4 steps is to always read the question. So I'm always going to start by reading the question. Once you've read the question, then you can do the 4 steps. And when you're reading the question, it's important to analyze the question. It says find the equation of a line parallel to y equals 3x minus 4, passing through the point negative 1, 0. I'm trying to find a line that's parallel to y equals 3x minus 4. And it's going through this point, negative 1 and 0, and I'm going to label those x and y. Now I can do the steps. The first step is write the equation of the line for y equals mx plus b. I do that. Substituting for m, the appropriate slope. So in this case, I'm looking for a slope that is, my new line is going to have a slope that is the same as y equals 3x minus 4 because my line is going to be parallel. And so I can now write y equals 3x plus b. I have substituted for m my new slope, my slope for my new equation. Alright, now the next step is to substitute for the x and y coordinates from the given point into your new equation to solve. So here are my given points, and I'm going to substitute for x in this equation negative 1 and for y 0. And so that looks like this. 0 equals 3 times negative 1 plus b. Now that I've substituted, I use algebra to solve for b because I need to find the y-intercept of my new line. I know the slope of my line was 3, and now I need to find the y-intercept of the line. So I get 0 is equal to negative 3 plus b, 3 is equal to b, and that is my y-intercept. And I'm just going to use these different colors throughout so that you will get used to this idea. Okay, so we found this, we were given the slope because we were told the line is parallel to 3x minus 4, and we had to find the y-intercept, which we did. We found that it was 3. Now we can write our new equation. Our new equation is simply y is equal to 3x plus 3. And where did we get those numbers from? We got the b from, we got this 3 here from this b over here. This is the y-intercept. And we got the slope here. You can see I've put in color coding so you can see where I'm getting those numbers. And I mean, right now that seems pretty straightforward, but as you'll see, it gets a little more complicated, and it'll be useful for you to see where the numbers are coming from. Question 3 says find the equation of a line perpendicular to y equals 2x plus 4, passing through the point 2, 5. My new equation is going to be a line that is perpendicular to 2x plus 4. That means the slope of the new line will be the negative reciprocal of 2. And so I can write now 2 as a fraction. Any whole number, just write it as a fraction over 1. And to get the negative reciprocal, I'm simply going to flip the fraction and put the negative, so change the sign. So it was positive, now it's negative. It was 2 over 1, now it's 1 over 2. So the slope of my new line is going to be negative 1 over 2. M is equal to negative 1 over 2. Then it passes through the point 2, 5, so I'm just going to label them x and y. Now I can follow the 4 steps that I've outlined here. The first step is I'm going to write the equation y equals mx plus b, substituting in for m the slope of the line that I'm creating. So now, see, I know the value of m, and we're going to continue to color code throughout. I know the value of m. This is my slope here. And I need to find out the value of b. And I can do that by now following step 2, which is substituting in the values for x and y. So the value of y is 5. The value for x is 2. And now I get 5 is equal to negative 2 over 2, because I did negative 1 times 2, 2 times 1. Negative 1 times 2 gives me negative 2, 2 times 1 gives me 2, plus b. Now, I could simplify negative 2 over 2, because that is just simply equal to negative 1. So I have now 5 equals to negative 1 plus b. I'm trying to get b by itself, so I'm going to add 1 to both sides. 6 is equal to b. 6 is our y-intercept. And I now can write my new equation, which has a slope of negative 1 over 2 and has a y-intercept of 6. Right? So there you go. And here you go. Question number 4 says, find the equation of a line parallel to x plus y plus 1 equals 0, passing through the point negative 2, negative 1. So if I'm analyzing this question, I want a line parallel, and this is going to be my x, this is going to be my y. Now there's a little bit of extra work to be done here, because as it is currently written in standard form, I need it written in slope y-intercept form so that I can easily identify what the slope is. And so I'm just going to convert this standard form over here on the right. So it's x plus 1, plus y plus 1 is equal to 0. And I'm now going to rearrange it so that the x and the 1 are on the right hand side of the equation. To do that, I need to subtract x and 1 from both sides of the equation. And I get y is equal to negative x subtract 1, and that means that the slope of this line is negative 1, and we can continue to use our color coding. Alright, so now that I know that the slope that I'm trying to, or need to use for my new line is going to be negative 1, because the line I'm creating is parallel to this line that we just found the slope of. We can now write the equation. We can now follow the 4 steps there. Y equals mx plus b. We substitute in for m negative 1. And I'm going to leave it as negative 1, though you know most times you can just write it like this. I just want us to be able to see it so there's no confusion. And then I'm now going to substitute in for y negative 1. And I'm going to substitute in for x negative 2. Plus b, and you can see where I got those values from. I got them from over here. Okay, I'm following step number 2. I take the x coordinate, the y coordinate, and I substitute it into the equation. I get negative 1 is equal to positive 2 plus b, because negative 1 times negative 2 is positive b, and yet I need to subtract 2 from both sides to find the value of b. So I get negative 1 subtract 2 is equal to b. Negative 3 is equal to b. And that is our y-intercept for our new line, for our new equation. And so our new equation is y is equal to negative x, or negative 1x, because the slope is negative 1, minus 3. And just to be consistent, we want to color code. So we got the y-intercept right here, and we have the slope right here, negative 1. Number 5 reads, find the equation of a line perpendicular to 6x minus y minus 11 equals 0, passing through the point negative 5, negative 1. Analyzing my question, I know I'm trying to find a line perpendicular to 6x minus y minus 11 equals 0, which is written in standard form and needs to be converted into slope y-intercept form so I can identify the slope. I can also identify the points, or the coordinates, x and y. So for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 6x minus y minus 11 equals 0, and I'm going to convert it into slope-intercept form over here. So I get 6x minus y minus 11 equals 0. And I need the y on the left by itself. I need the 6x and the negative 11 on the right so that it can look like y equals mx plus b. And so to do that, I'm going to subtract 6x from both sides, and I'm going to add 11 to both sides. So now I have negative y equals negative 6x plus 11. And now y is not completely isolated because it has a negative 1 multiplying by it. To get rid of that negative 1, I'm going to divide everything by negative 1. And once I do that, I get y is equal to 6x minus 11. And so I can see here in my original equation, the slope, and we'll call that slope 1, m1. The slope is 6. And remember, a whole number is just a fraction with a denominator of 1. So that is the slope of my original equation. But remember, my new equation needs to have a slope that is the negative reciprocal because it's perpendicular, this new equation, this new line that we're finding. And so we flip the fraction and it becomes 1 over 6, and we change the sign so it becomes negative 1 over 6. And that is going to be our new slope. Okay, so now that we know our new slope, we can now go through steps 1 to 4. I write the equation y equals mx plus b. I substitute for m the new slope that I'm going to be using. And now I'm going to try and find b by substituting in the x and y coordinates that I got from the question. So the y coordinate was negative 1. The x coordinate was negative 5 plus b. And so now I'm going to multiply negative 1 over 6 by negative 5. Remember, negative 5 is just negative 5 over 1. And so when I do this, I get negative 1 times negative 5 gives me positive 5. And 6 times 1 gives me 6. And so I have negative 1 equals 5 over 6 plus b. I want to get b by itself, and so I'm going to subtract 5 over 6 from both sides. And I end up with negative 1 equals to negative 5 over 6. Sorry. Negative 1 subtract 5 over 6 is equal to b. Now, in order to subtract 5 over 6 from 1, they need to have the same denominator. Right now, negative 1 has the denominator of 1. And so in order to make it the same denominator as 5 over 6, I'm going to multiply it by 6, which means I have to also multiply the numerator by 6. I then can rewrite it as negative 6 over 6 minus 5 over 6 is equal to b. And, when I'm subtracting fractions with the same denominator, I can just subtract the numerators. So negative 6 minus 5 gives me negative 11 over 6 is equal to b. And so that is my y-intercept, b. And now I can write my new equation, which is y is equal to negative 1 over 6 x subtract 11 over 6. And I'm going to again use my color coding just to be clear. This is my y-intercept. You can see where I got it from. And this is my slope. You can see where I got it from. So on to question number 6, which says find the equation of a line parallel to 5x plus 6y minus 2 equals 0, passing through the point negative 3, negative 7. And so if I analyze this, I can see I'm being asked for a parallel line. Our new line is going to be parallel to the line we've been given, which is written here in standard form and needs to be rewritten in slope-intercept form. So we're going to do that in just a moment. And if we look at the question, it passes through the point negative 3, negative 7. So those are your x and y coordinates. To convert this standard form equation to slope-intercept form, I need to get the 5x and the negative 2 to the other side of the equation. and get the y all by itself. And so I'm going to subtract 5x from both sides and add 2 to both sides. And I end up with this. Now I need to divide both sides of the equation by 6 to get y by itself. Y is equal to negative 5 over 6x plus, and we can write 2 over 6 in lowest terms, plus 1 over 3. I now have my slope. This is my slope because the line is parallel to this line. The line we're trying to create is going to be parallel to this line, and this line has a slope of negative 5 over 6. So that's the slope for my new equation, for the new line that I'm finding the equation of. So now what I can do once I've done that is I can follow steps 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the first part is to write y equals mx plus b. And I'm now going to substitute in for m negative 5 over 6. And now I can substitute into the equation values for x and y. So y is negative 7, negative 5 over 6. And for x, we can get negative 3 plus b. Now we're trying to find the y-intercept. So we substitute in the x and y coordinates into the equation. So now when we do this, we get negative 7 is equal to positive 15 over 6. How did I get that? Negative 3 times negative 5 gave me positive 15. 6 times 1 gave me 6. Negative 3 is just negative 3 over 1. And so that's why I can do that multiplication as I've done. Plus a b. And now I want to get b by itself, so I need to subtract 15 over 6 from both sides. And I get negative 7 minus 15 over 6 equals 2b. And in order to do subtraction, if you recall, we have to have denominators which are the same. So I have to convert this fraction into a fraction which has the same denominator as 6. And to get 1 to be 6, I multiply it by 6, which means I have to also multiply negative 7 by 6. And that's going to give me negative 42 over 6 minus 15 over 6 equals to b. And now I can simply subtract the numerators, and I get negative 57 over 6 is equal to b. And that tells me our y-intercept for our new equation, which our new equation is going to be y equals to, here's our slope, negative 5 over 6x minus 57 over 6. And just to color code for consistency's sake, here is my y-intercept, and here is my slope. Okay, question number 7 says find the equation of a line perpendicular to 2x plus 5y plus 3 equals 0, passing through the point negative 2, negative 3. Analyzing the question, I can see that it wants a line. The new line we're going to be creating is perpendicular to this equation, which is written in standard form and which will need to be rewritten in slope-intercept form. It looks like this in standard form. We'll get to that in a moment. It passes through the point negative 2, negative 3, so those are my x and y coordinates. Just like I did in question number 6, I'm going to convert this to slope-intercept form by subtracting 2x from both sides and subtracting 3 from both sides. That gives me 5y equals negative 2x minus 3. To get y by itself, I need now to divide both sides by 5. Y is therefore equal to negative 2 over 5x minus 3 over 5. Now remember this, the question is asking for us to make a line which is perpendicular, which means the slope, which was negative 2 over 5 in the equation that we were given, is going to be the negative reciprocal in the equation we're trying to find, which means we need to flip the fractions and change the sign. So it was positive, it becomes, sorry, it was negative, it becomes positive, and it becomes 5 over 2 is our slope that we are going to be putting into our new equation. Now we have the slope, and we know the points. Now we can write for ourselves y equals mx plus b. We're just following the 4 steps outlined here on in the at the top there. And we substitute in for m 5/2. We now substitute in for y -3, because that's the coordinate y. We substitute in for x -2, and we're trying to find the y-intercept. So now we're going to do algebra to do that. First we have to simplify. We have 5/2 times -2. That gives us -10 over 2, which is equal to, and then we can write plus b. And -10/2 is simply just -5, and so I can rewrite that simplified. And then what do I have to do now? I have to add 5 to both sides, so I get -3 plus 5 is equal to b, and I get 2 is equal to b. So 2 is our y-intercept. Now we can write our new equation because we have a slope and we have a y-intercept, and we get y is equal to 5/2 x plus 2. And just to color code, here we have our y-intercept, and here we have our slope. Question 8 reads, find the equation of a line parallel to x equals 4, passing through the point -6, 1. So analyzing the question, we're being asked for a line that's parallel to x equals 4, and we're given the points -6 and 1. So first let's talk about the equation x equals 4. X equals 4 is in the format x equals a and produces a vertical line. Let's just picture it over here for a quick moment. If this here is 4, then then our line for this equation is going to look like this. All right. So then what that means, well, what is the slope of this line? The slope of this line is undefined, and that means that our new line, which is parallel to it, will also have a slope which is undefined and will therefore also be a vertical line. Now this vertical line goes through the point -6, 1, and -6, 1, if we were to make a kind of educated guess as to where it would be around here, let's say. And we know that the line that's going to go through it has to be vertical, so very easily we could draw it like this. And what's going to be the value of x here, of the x-intercept? It's -6, right? And so the equation for our new line is simply x equals to -6, because if the line goes through the point -6, 1, and it's vertical, you can see how it's going to look, and it's going to go through the x-intercept, which is -6. And so this is our new equation. Question number 9 reads, find the equation of a line perpendicular to x equals -2, passing through the point 7, 2. If I analyze the question, I can see they're asking for a line which is perpendicular to x equals -2, and the x and y coordinates are 7 and 2. Let's think about x equals -2. X equals -2 is going to be a vertical line passing through the x-axis at -2. And so if I were to graph it, it would look something like this. See, it's a vertical line. And now I have to think, if I wanted to create a line that's going to be perpendicular to the vertical line, that line is going to have to be horizontal, right? So while vertical lines are in the form x equals a, where a represents the x-intercept, horizontal lines are in the form y equals b, where b represents the y-intercept. And so let's think about where would this point 7, 2 be approximately if we were to graph it. And so the point 7, 2 would be about, let's say here. right? So imagine this is 7 and over here is 2. And so then what that would mean is if we have a horizontal line is that it's going to have to go through, and we'll fix our point just a little bit here. It's going to go through like this. Here's our new line. You can see it is horizontal, and it goes through the y-axis at 2, so the y-intercept is 2. And what would the equation then be if the y-intercept is 2? Our new equation is simply going to be y is equal to 2. Question number 10 reads, find the equation of a line perpendicular to y equals 7x minus 6 with the same y-intercept as y equals to negative 2x plus 4. Analyzing the question, we want a line that is perpendicular. The new equation will be for a line that is perpendicular to y equals 7x minus 6. And in this question, all that's happened here is instead of giving you the point, you have to find out the point for yourself. So you see here you got the points given to you. Here you have to find the point for yourself. And how we're going to find it is by finding the y-intercept of that equation. It'll be fairly simple, you'll see. First, let's take a look at the slope. So our slope in the original equation we were given was 7. But we want a slope that's going to be a negative reciprocal because the new line is going to be perpendicular. Remember, 7 just means 7 over 1. It's positive, so I change the sign and I flip the fraction. It becomes negative 1 over 7. That's our new slope. Now, how can I find the y-intercept of y equals negative 2x plus 4? I mean, it's fairly simple. Here it is. That's the y-intercept. So let's color code. Here is our slope, here is our y-intercept, and we have our new equation down below, which is going to be y is equal to negative 1 over 7x plus 4. And color coding. Very good. Question number 11 reads, find the equation of a line parallel to x equals 6 with the same x-intercept as y equals negative 2 over 3 x minus 4. Analyzing the question, I can see I'm being asked for a parallel line, a line that is parallel to x equals 6. X equals 6 is in the form x equals a, where a represents the x-intercept, and this kind of line is a vertical line. If I were to picture it over here, here is the number 6, and my line for that equation, x equals 6, would look like that. Now, I want to, for my new equation, for my new line that I'm finding an equation for, it's going to have the same x-intercept as this equation right here. And if you recall, whenever you have an x-intercept, the value of y at the x-intercept is always 0. And so I can find the x-intercept by simply substituting in 0 for y. And so I have the equation y equals negative 2 over 3x minus 4. I substitute in for y 0. I get negative 2 over 3x minus 4. I now need to use algebra in order to find the value of x. And I can do that by simply multiplying everything in the equation by 3. I'm going to get rid of the fraction, right? First, multiply everything in the equation by 3. Gets rid of the fraction. 3 times 0 gives me 0. And 3 times negative 2 over 3x gives me negative 2x. This becomes 1 and we don't need to see it any longer. And negative 4 times 3 gives me negative 12. I now need to get x by itself, and negative 12 is in the way, so I add 12 to both sides. I have now 12 equals to negative 2x. I divide both sides by negative 2, and negative 6 is equal to x. So if you picture it on our graph over here, so here's negative 6, and the line would be a vertical line going through here, and therefore our equation is going to be x is equal to negative 6. Question number 12 reads, find the equation of a line perpendicular to 5x minus 2y plus 8 equals 0 with the same x-intercept as the line x minus 5y minus 5 equals to 0. Analyzing the question, we want a line that's going to be perpendicular to 5x minus 2y plus 8. Our new line will be perpendicular to that line. And it's going to have the same x-intercept as this line over here. So we are going to get our slope by converting this to slope-intercept form and then finding the negative reciprocal. And we're going to get our point from finding the x-intercept in the other equation that we've been given. All right, so let's take it step by step. And the first step is we're going to get the slope of this line so we can find out the slope of a perpendicular line. So we have to convert 5x minus 2y plus 8 equals 0 into slope-intercept form, and in order to do that, I'm going to subtract 5x from both sides and subtract 8 from both sides. And so I get negative 2y is equal to negative 5x minus 8. Now to get y by itself, I need to divide both sides by negative 2. And I end up with y is equal to 5 over 2x plus 4. Okay, so then now in this equation, the slope is 5 over 2. That's the equation we've been given. But the the slope of our new equation is going to be the negative reciprocal. So we flip the fraction, we get 2 over 5, and we change the sign, it's negative. Negative 2 over 5 is going to be our new slope. Okay, so we can put that in pink as we've been doing. All right, now we need to find the point that we can use in order to determine the y-intercept of our new equation. And the point that we have a clue for is it's going to be the x-intercept of this equation down here. So let's find the x-intercept. How do we do that? We substitute in for y 0. So we're going to write out the equation here, and the equation is x minus 5y minus 5 is equal to 0. I substitute in for y 0, and I then get x minus 5 is equal to 0. I add 5 to both sides. X is equal to 5. That means there is a point on our line which is going to be 5, 0. I now have the slope and a point. If I have a slope and a point, I can find the equation of any line. So what I can do now is I'm following steps 1, 2, 3, and 4 now. Y equals mx plus b. What was the slope? The slope that I know is negative 2 over 5, because the line is perpendicular to y equals 5 over 2x plus 4. Now we can substitute in for x and y. So here's our x value, here's our y value, and we get 0 here, negative 2 over 5x. That is going to be times 5 plus b. And when we do this calculation, we get 0 equals negative 10 over 5. We did 5 times negative 2, we got negative 10. And 5 times 1, we get 5 plus b. And what's negative 10 divided by 5? It's simply negative 2. So we have 0 equals negative 2 plus b. We want to get rid of the negative 2 so we can isolate b. We add 2 to both sides, and we get 2 is equal to b. That is our y-intercept. And we have reached the end of our this question because we have the new equation. The new equation is going to be y is equal to negative 2 over 5x plus 2. And you can see where we got the y-intercept from over here and where we got the slope. We got the slope right here.